The soft patter of falling snow against the windowpane was the only sound that broke the eerie stillness of the Whitmore household. Avery Whitmore stood transfixed, her gaze fixed on the gentle flurry outside, yet her mind was a million miles away. At 9 months pregnant, the weight of her unborn child pressed heavily upon her, both physically and emotionally. Avery traced the faint lines of her reflection in the glass, her brow furrowed with unease. For weeks, she had been plagued by a growing sense of dread, a foreboding that lurked at the edges of her consciousness. It was as if an unseen presence was watching her, waiting. Turning away from the window, Avery's eyes landed on the ornate, gilded mirror that hung on the wall. It had been a cherished family heirloom, passed down through generations, but now it filled her with a palpable unease. As Avery stared into the reflective surface, her breath caught in her throat. For the briefest of moments, she caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure in the mirror's depths, a fleeting, indistinct form that seemed to drift and swirl like smoke on the wind. Avery blinked rapidly, her heart pounding in her ears, but the apparition had vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Avery instinctively cradled her swollen belly, a primal maternal urge to protect her unborn child. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt tainted by an unseen malevolence. Avery shuddered, a chill running down her spine. Where was Grayson? Her husband, a successful software engineer, had been away on a business trip for the past week, leaving Avery alone with her unsettling thoughts. Typically, his presence would have been a comforting anchor, but now, in his absence, Avery felt adrift, vulnerable. As the shadows of the room deepened, Avery couldn't shake the growing dread that had taken hold of her. Something was not right. The once familiar surroundings now felt charged with an unseen tension, a darkness that seemed to watch and wait, its intentions unknown. The soft chime of the doorbell startled Avery from her troubled reverie. Crossing the room, she peered through the peephole and felt a wave of relief wash over her as she recognized the familiar face of her closest friend, Penelope Sinclair. Penelope, a vibrant and spirited local artist, had sensed Avery's growing unease over the past few weeks. Concern etched across her features as Avery opened the door, ushering her inside from the blustery winter chill. "Avery, darling, I came as soon as I could," Penelope said, her warm alto voice tinged with worry. She swept Avery into a gentle embrace, her eyes searching her friend's face. "You look absolutely exhausted. What's been going on?" Leading Penelope to the living room, Avery sank into the plush cushions of the couch, her hands instinctively cradling her swollen belly. Taking a deep, steadying breath, she recounted the unsettling incident with the mirror, the fleeting, shadowy figure that had appeared in its reflection. Penelope listened intently, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Avery, you know I've always been interested in the metaphysical. Perhaps there's more to this than meets the eye." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Have you considered the possibility of a spiritual presence in this house?" Avery shook her head firmly, her expression one of dismissal. "Don't be ridiculous, Penelope. I'm sure it was just a trick of the light." Yet, even as the words left her lips, Avery couldn't ignore the lingering unease that had taken root deep within her. Penelope reached out, giving Avery's hand a gentle squeeze. "I know you're a rational person, Avery, but sometimes there are forces at work that defy explanation. Perhaps it would be wise to at least explore the possibility, for your own peace of mind, and for the sake of your child." Avery's gaze drifted to the ornate mirror, its gilded frame seemingly casting an ominous shadow across the room. A shiver ran down her spine, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, even in the comfort of her own home. Grayson Whitmore returned home a few days later, the weary lines on his face smoothing into a relieved smile as he embraced his wife. "Avery, my love, I'm so glad to be back, he murmured, his strong arms enveloping her. Avery melted into his touch, finding solace in his familiar warmth. I've missed you, Grayson. The house has felt so empty without you. As the days passed, however, Grayson couldn't help but notice a subtle shift in Avery's demeanor. Her once vibrant personality had been replaced by a palpable unease, a distant look in her eyes that unsettled him. One evening, as they prepared for bed, Avery finally confessed the troubling encounter she had experienced with the mirror. Grayson listened intently, his expression oscillating between concern and skepticism. Avery, you know I respect your intuition, but this sounds like the workings of an overactive imagination, Grayson said, his brow furrowed. You're under a lot of stress right now, and it's natural to feel on edge. Avery nodded slowly, her eyes downcast. Maybe you're right, Grayson. I just can't shake this feeling that something is off. She paused, her hand unconsciously rubbing her swollen belly. Grayson pulled her into a warm embrace, his strong hand caressing her hair. Shh, it's going to be all right. We're together now, and I'm not going anywhere. Let's try to get some rest. Avery sighed, relaxing into his embrace. I hope you're right, Grayson. I just want to feel safe in our own home again. As Grayson held her, he couldn't help but wonder if there was more to Avery's experience than he was willing to admit. The haunted look in her eyes was undeniable, and he vowed to keep a closer eye on her in the days to come. In the days that followed, Avery's unease only seemed to intensify. She began experiencing vivid, unsettling dreams, disjointed images of shadowy figures lurking in the corners of her home, ominous whispers that echoed in the darkness. Waking in a cold sweat, Avery would lie in bed, her hand protectively cradling her swollen belly as she strained to make sense of the disturbing visions. Even during her waking hours, Avery couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows seemed to dance at the edges of her vision, and the once comforting mirror that hung in the living room had become a source of dread. Every time she passed by it, Avery found herself averting her gaze, a shiver running down her spine. Penelope, sensing her friend's growing distress, made it a point to visit more frequently. She would arrive with a warm embrace and a sympathetic ear, offering whatever comfort and support she could. Yet, as much as Avery appreciated Penelope's presence, the unease that had taken hold of her refused to be quelled. One afternoon, as the two women sat together in the living room, Penelope broached a subject that had been weighing heavily on her mind. Avery, I know you've been struggling with this, and I can't imagine how unsettling it must be, she said, her voice soft and earnest. But have you ever considered the possibility that there might be a spiritual presence in your home? Avery felt a surge of resistance, her brow furrowing in a mix of skepticism and discomfort. Penelope, you can't be serious. I'm not the type to go chasing after ghosts or... Penelope held up a hand, cutting her off gently. I know, but hear me out, Avery. What if there's a way to get to the bottom of this, to find some answers? There's a renowned medium in town, Harry Blackwood. Perhaps a visit with him could shed some light on what you've been experiencing. Avery's initial instinct was to dismiss the idea outright, but something deep within her, a maternal instinct, perhaps, urged her to at least consider it. The well-being of her unborn child was at stake, and if there was even the slightest chance that Penelope's suggestion could provide some clarity, Avery knew she had to at least explore it. Exhaling a long, reluctant sigh, Avery nodded. All right, Penelope, I'll do it. For the baby's sake, if nothing else. Penelope's face lit up with a sympathetic smile, her hand reaching out to give Avery's a gentle squeeze. I know this isn't easy, but I truly believe it could help. You're doing the right thing, Avery. I'll make the arrangements with Harry Blackwood right away." As Penelope busied herself with the details, Avery felt a sense of trepidation settle in the pit of her stomach. She couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that whatever answers she sought might come at a far greater cost than she was prepared to pay. The air in Harry Blackwood's dimly lit parlor was thick with the earthy scent of incense, casting an almost otherworldly glow over the room. Avery sat across from the renowned medium, her hands trembling slightly as she waited for him to begin. Harry Blackwood, a man whose reputation for uncanny insight preceded him, closed his eyes and traced the lines of Avery's palm with his weathered fingers. "I sense a powerful, unseen presence in your home," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "A dark energy, circling, waiting." Avery felt a chill run down her spine, and she instinctively pulled her hand away. "What do you mean? What presence?" Harry's eyes snapped open, their piercing gaze meeting Avery's. "This entity is drawn to the new life growing within you. It seeks to interfere." Avery's heart raced, her mind reeling with the implications of Harry's words. "Interfere? How? What do I do?" she'd asked, her voice laced with desperation. "You must cleanse your home, Avery," Harry replied, his expression grave. "Banish this darkness before it's too late." Avery shook her head, her brow furrowed in disbelief. "But how? I don't even know what I'm dealing with. This all sounds so unreal." Harry reached across the table, his weathered hand grasping hers. "I understand your skepticism, my dear, but I assure you, the threat is very real. This entity feeds on the energy of new life, and it will stop at nothing to claim your child." Avery felt a surge of maternal panic, her free hand instinctively cradling her swollen belly. "No, I won't let it. I have to protect my baby. Tell me what I need to do." "You must act quickly," Harry urged. "The entity has already taken root in your home. Gather your husband, and I will provide you with the necessary steps to cleanse your sanctuary and banish this darkness." Avery nodded, her resolve hardening. "All right, I'll do it. Anything to keep my family safe." As she rose to leave, Avery couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled in the pit of her stomach. What horrors awaited her in her own home, and could she truly find the strength to confront the unseen forces that threatened to tear her world apart? Avery rushed home, her mind a whirlwind of fear and uncertainty. The ominous words of Harry Blackwood, the renowned medium, echoed in her mind, his warnings of a dark, unseen presence that threatened her family. As soon as she stepped through the front door, Avery sought out Grayson, her eyes wide with a mixture of desperation and determination. "Grayson, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I just came from seeing Harry Blackwood, the medium, and he told me that there's a powerful, dark entity in our home. It's drawn to the life growing inside me, and we need to do something about it before it's too late." Grayson listened intently, his brow furrowing with a mix of concern and skepticism. "Avery, are you sure about this? I know you've been under a lot of stress, but this all sounds a bit far-fetched." Avery nodded emphatically, her hands instinctively cradling her swollen belly. "I know it sounds unbelievable, Grayson, but I believe him. I've been feeling this presence, this darkness, and it's only been growing stronger. We have to do something." Grayson remained silent for a moment, his gaze searching Avery's face. Finally, he let out a resigned sigh and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "All right, Avery, if you truly believe this is happening, then I trust you. We'll do whatever it takes to keep our family safe." Relief washed over Avery's features, and she reached up to cover Grayson's hand with her own. "Thank you," she whispered. "Harry said we need to cleanse the house, to banish this darkness before it's too late." Grayson nodded, his expression resolute. Then that's exactly what we'll do. I'll call in a team to perform a full spiritual cleansing of the house. We can't take any chances, not with you and the baby. Avery's hand tightened around Grayson's, and she felt a glimmer of hope amid the overwhelming dread. I just want this all to be over. I want to feel safe in my own home again. Grayson pulled her into a gentle embrace, his strong arms enveloping her. I know, my love. We're going to get through this, I promise. We'll banish this darkness and reclaim our sanctuary together. Over the next few days, the house underwent a thorough spiritual cleansing, with Avery and Grayson carefully following Harry's instructions. Yet, as the ritual progressed, Avery couldn't shake the lingering sense of unease that had settled in the pit of her stomach. The darkness, it seemed, had not yet been vanquished. In the days that followed the spiritual cleansing of their home, Avery and Grayson hoped to find some semblance of peace and normalcy. However, the unsettling presence that had plagued them refused to be so easily banished. Avery found herself constantly on edge, jumping at the slightest unexpected sound or shadow. The mirror that had once been a cherished family heirloom now filled her with a deep sense of dread, and she went to great lengths to avoid even glancing in its direction. At night, Avery's sleep was haunted by vivid, unsettling dreams, disjointed images of shadowy figures lurking in the corners of her home, ominous whispers that echoed in the darkness. She would wake with a start, her heart pounding, the weight of her unborn child pressing heavily upon her. Grayson, too, began to sense the lingering darkness that permeated their once peaceful sanctuary. He would catch Avery staring intently at the mirror, her brow furrowed with a mixture of fear and concentration, and he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. One evening, as they prepared for bed, Avery suddenly froze, her gaze transfixed on the gilded frame of the mirror. "Grayson," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Look." Grayson followed her line of sight, and his breath caught in his throat. There, in the depths of the mirror's reflection, a shadowy figure seemed to drift and swirl, its formless shape morphing and shifting with unsettling fluidity. Avery instinctively cradled her swollen belly, taking a step backward, away from the unsettling sight. "It's here, Grayson. The darkness, it's still here." Grayson moved to Avery's side, his arm encircling her protectively. "We'll get through this, Avery. I won't let anything happen to you or the baby." His voice was laced with a determined resolve, but Avery could sense the underlying fear that threatened to break through. As the seconds ticked by, the shadowy figure in the mirror seemed to dissipate, melting back into the depths of the reflective surface. Avery and Grayson stood transfixed, their hearts pounding, both acutely aware that the darkness had not yet been vanquished. Grayson turned to Avery, his expression grave. "I think it's time we call Harry Blackwood again. This thing, it's not gone. We need to find a way to get rid of it, once and for all." Avery nodded, her hand trembling as she reached for the phone. The weight of their unborn child's safety hung heavy in the air, and they both knew that the battle against the unseen forces that threatened their family was far from over. Panic seized Avery as the shadowy figure in the mirror seemed to surge forward, its formless tendrils reaching towards her swollen belly. With a terrified cry, she stumbled backward, her hands clutching protectively at her unborn child. Grayson, sensing Avery's distress, rushed to her side. "Avery, what's wrong?" he exclaimed, his eyes wide with concern. "The mirror, Grayson," Avery gasped, her voice trembling. "It's back, and it's trying to get to the baby." Without hesitation, Grayson stepped between Avery and the mirror, shielding her with his body. "I won't let it," he growled, his gaze fixed on the ominous reflection. Avery felt a surge of relief, but it was short-lived as the shadows in the room seemed to deepen, the air growing thick with a palpable tension. The entity, it seemed, was not to be deterred. Grayson reached for his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. "I'm calling Harry Blackwood. We need his help, now." Harry's gruff voice answered on the other end of the line. "Grayson, what's happening?" he demanded. "It's back, Harry," Grayson replied, his voice strained. "The entity, it's here, and it's going after Avery and the baby. We need you to come, quickly." There was a pregnant pause on the other end of the line, then Harry's voice, laced with urgency. "I'm on my way. Do not let it take hold. Fight it, Grayson, with everything you've got." Grayson ended the call, his gaze locked on the mirror as the shadowy figure continued to swirl and morph within its gilded frame. "Avery, stay behind me," he commanded, his voice steady despite the fear that threatened to overwhelm him. "I won't let it hurt you or our child." Avery nodded, her hands trembling as she clung to the back of Grayson's shirt. "Please, Grayson, make it stop. I can't bear the thought of losing our baby." The air grew thick with tension as the entity seemed to gather its strength, its presence palpable and menacing. Grayson braced himself, his muscles tense, ready to defend his family at all costs. In the distance, the faint sound of Harry's car pulling up to the house offered a glimmer of hope, but the battle was far from over. Avery and Grayson knew they had to muster every ounce of strength and courage to confront the darkness that had infiltrated their once sanctuary. The fate of their family hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. As Harry Blackwood burst through the front door, an air of quiet authority surrounded him. Striding purposefully towards the mirror, he raised his gnarled hands, a string of ancient incantations spilling from his lips. Avery and Grayson watched with bated breath as the medium worked, a palpable energy filling the room. The shadows seemed to recoil, the inky tendrils that had been reaching towards Avery's swollen belly now retreating, withering under the onslaught of Harry's mystical power. Slowly, the shadowy figure in the mirror began to dissipate, its formless shape dissolving into wisps of smoke. Avery felt a wave of relief wash over her, her hand instinctively cradling her belly. "It's working," Grayson whispered, his eyes fixed on the mirror. "The darkness is being driven out." With a final, resounding incantation, Harry Blackwood thrust his hands forward, and the mirror exploded in a shower of shattered glass. The room was suddenly filled with an eerie silence, the oppressive presence that had haunted the Whitmore home, now seemingly vanquished. Avery, trembling but unharmed, looked up at Harry with a mixture of gratitude and awe. "It's gone?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Harry nodded solemnly. "For now, yes. But you must remain vigilant. The entity has been weakened, but it may return, drawn to the power of new life. You and your family must stay strong, and continue to cleanse your home of any lingering darkness." Grayson placed a reassuring hand on Avery's shoulder, pulling her close. "We will, Harry. Thank you for your help. We owe you a debt of gratitude." As the medium made his way to the door, Avery felt a surge of hope coursing through her. The darkness had been vanquished, at least for the time being, and she was determined to do whatever it took to protect her unborn child. Looking into Grayson's eyes, Avery knew that together, they could face any challenge that came their way. They were a family, united in their love, and their resolve to overcome the forces that threatened to tear them apart. The question that lingered in Avery's mind, however, was this: what unseen challenges might still lie ahead, and would they have the strength to confront them? I hope this gripping story of a family's struggle with the supernatural captivated you. Now, I invite you to ponder the question that Avery was left with. What unseen challenges might still lie ahead for the Whitmores, and do you believe they will have the strength to confront them? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Your insights could provide valuable perspective and inspiration. And if you enjoyed this thrilling chapter, be sure to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share this video with your friends. Together, we can explore the depths of the unknown and uncover the extraordinary in the everyday.